Alexei. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I will just keep
Indeed.
that on stream for now, but just generally speaking, I think this piece of art is very, very beauty, if I look at it.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm just curious, like, how would you actually yourself describe your art?
Um, for me, it's kind of a difficult question because when I think about my own art, I like to think that my art is like semi-realistic, but I've been told many, many, many times they're like, "Oh, I love your cartoony style," and so I'm like, "Oh." But I'm
Classic.
definitely trying to drive towards like semi-realism and that type of beat because it's my most favorite kind of art is like a semi-realistic approach.
I would also say, like, in the space of, hey, there is semi-realism and there is cartoony and anime and all of that kind of stuff, you are somewhere just mixing all of that. Here's the other thing. We have another picture, which I think, like, if you saw this in the wild, you might not even know this was Beaultea. Just look at this. Isn't this so cool?
Thank you. I actually made that long, long time ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago now. Yeah, so I like to try to take photos and try to recreate them. I don't do it as often as I would necessarily like to, but
Mhm.
yes, I think it's important for like growth as an artist to try to take things from photos and real life that you see and try to put them onto a page.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I think if I look here, there's very rough brush strokes that you use for the leaves. I think you probably can tell better than I can assume, but just going by what you see in the shading, you always have more painting style, right?
It's actually a kind of newer development in my style, I would think, because even like the
Hmm.
background photo that I have there, I used a lot of pre-made brushes for it, like a lot of like leaf
Hmm.
brushes and stuff. um, so that one was less merit to my own skill, I think, in brush strokes. But painting is something that I've more recently come around to, and I find a lot of joy doing it. I think it's helped me kind of break away from a lot of the like, I guess you would say maybe like TikTok expectations or classroom
Hmm.
expectations of like how you should go about doing art. Because I very much always heard that it was like, oh, you do a sketch and then you do line art, and then you fill in the color of the line art basically. But I found that to be like a very restrictive approach to me doing art.
Hmm.
And so instead, now what I do is I'll sketch and then I'll put all my colors down and then I just merge the layers and then just paint and paint and paint. And then I add lines on top at the end. And I found that to be
Oh,
much more effective for my overall process than trying to do line art first.
you taking the risky approach of, hey, what if I just merge all the layers and can't go back?
Yes, I'm a one layer warrior.
Scary.
It's really fun. You should try it sometime. I think everybody should try it at least once. I also am a very big fan of black lines, which you may
Hmm.
see in my model here on the screen, which I did make this model
Hmm.
myself. For those of you that don't know, I drew it and I rigged it. But I really love black lines, and I actually something I would like to do is I'd like to get into more like black work specifically, like how you see in the Hades art style. It's something that I very much enjoy.
I think this is also a good comparison because one of them is an art study, right? This one was an art
Yes.
study.
I sat down for 10 hours and worked on the piece of Chapel Roan. I was trying to recreate a photo essentially. And it's funny because I can see a lot of places in that piece where I actually would consider them failures and like things that I don't like about it and things that I think could be improved upon, especially when you look at it next to the actual photo. You can see that there's quite a few differences in the photo versus the piece that I ended up making. But I think overall it was very it was a fun piece to do. Just kind of trying to really see how different objects relate to one another and how the light will affect the skin versus the clothes versus her earring versus her hair,
Hmm.
and it was also that was the first piece. The Chapel Run piece is the first one that I did where I actually started adding more like bluish tones into the skin. And I found that to be like a really very effective way of properly conveying a skin tone that isn't just like a single tone and maybe you add blush, you know?
It's very visible here as well.
Yeah. A kind of undershadow. Yeah, it is
And
very
also,
interesting for me to look at this piece in conjunction with the actual photo and just see the exact places where I'm like, oh, I could have improved that or done this or, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's the continual and ever-present artist struggle, is just always seeing only where you can improve. So most of the pieces that I sent today were from ArtFight just because they're my most recent portfolio, because ArtFight is finishing in T minus, I don't know, like 5 hours or something. So I don't know. I think that is probably one of my better, I guess, strengths as an artist, is I can usually complete things quickly. It's just the motivation is the thing that gets in the way of the time a lot of the time. So, but for both of these pieces, I think they each took around 3 hours to do, start to finish. And something that has sped me up, I think, a lot in my art process is just really trusting the process, you know, and like believing in the final vision of it rather than like getting bogged down in like mistakes or things that are unfinished along the way. And just kind of like slowly building up and adding. And I think it's a fundamental that's taught in painting classes as well, is like building up from a foundation. And that's something I've been trying to employ in my digital art, which I've never painted with oil paints. I've painted very, very minimally with acrylics, but when I was, 10, so long time ago, since I've never used paints as the artist that I am today or recently. So it's something that I'd like to try, just to see kind of how that skill translates with building up upon a foundation.
Speed being one of your strengths, and basically having the foundation to work with. That basically answers the next question I would have already, which namely would be, what would you say you're good at? The confidence you have built up in just having the confidence to delete your layers, to merge your layers, to apply your painting style. Do you have any other strength you would say, like, oh, hey, this is what I'm really good at as well, personally thinking?
Ooh, I'm not sure. That's also a hard question, because I feel like it's something that I've long held as one of my strengths as an artist, is my speed, specifically in sketching for a long time. Like I can bust out a sketch in like 2 minutes, I can get a whole thing down, the refinement of said sketch is maybe that's a little bit more I think it is just the built confidence over time. Is I feel better now about my art, and being able to actually finish out a piece and achieve an effect and a result that I enjoy. And it's something that I struggle with sometimes. Actually, and so the two of the photos that you're showing on the screen right now, the girl on the deer and then the bot, those are actually from a concept art class that I took online 3 years ago. And that class it helped teach me a lot about just finishing something, getting something an idea onto a page and then really finishing it out and fleshing it out and stuff. But I think speed is probably the top one. And even then, of course, it still will take me a long time on certain projects to do certain things. Larky's model that I just finished, it took me around 150 hours of work. And so I was doing that for 3 or 4 months, And so it's a long process for some certain things, but it's definitely experimentation and things that will slow me down. But sketching is a big strength, and as well as I feel I'm a lot more comfortable and faster painting now as well than I used to be.
Okay.
If you'll notice specifically on the hand, something that my teacher pointed out, he was like, well, the story that you're telling there is not so concrete, right? He was like, that's just kind of a shape, but I don't actually know what's going on in the mechanics of that arm, And so he was like, oh, you should add this bolt and this blah blah blah. And so another thing that he taught me about more like robots and stuff was adding visual interest through like divots and just like breaking up the silhouette. So also, if you'll notice the welder arm as well, you see how the first draft I have of it, it's a very straight line that just like goes up after there's the little break. And then you'll see in the finished piece how those two little bars, they actually are slightly thinner than the top of the welder and then the bottom of it. And so that was just another thing where he was like, yeah, you want to like vary the silhouette and add, he called it basically like little eye candies. So like just little things for a viewer to look at and see, as well as the tube that's going from the welder arm to the gas tank. He was like, oh, well, what's the story there? Like, how is it attaching to the gas tank? Like, you have to show that, you know? And he was like, you can also make it loop and go around and do blah, 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 and X, Y, Z. And then the note that he gave me with the mask as well, he was like, well, what kind of like personality does it have? Because like, I don't see like any eyes, like I don't see like any this or that. And then you can also see like the neck, you can see that it was all just like a very like clean, like put together thing. But he was like, oh, well, I want to see more of like the internal mechanisms of this creature, as well as like the back of the head was another one. Cause he was like, I don't like just this one round shape, but rather like you can actually put like a mask on it and then imply that there is like some robotic thing going on in the back that you don't have to show. But it's a stronger concept when you have more of these ideas more like better fleshed out and stuff, you know. And so he gave me a lot of really, really good insights and information on it. And this teacher, by the way, he is now working as an official concept artist for Sony. So
cool.
You know, he's pretty good at what he does. Yeah, and again, this class was 3 years ago, and if you had told me like 10 years ago that I would have been making art like this, I probably never would have believed you, you know. And so I think that formal teaching can be very important in certain scenarios, because I was self-taught basically my entire life. I'd taken one watercolor class in high school, and then I was in AP art for like a semester, but the teacher hated me, so I dropped. And then besides that, it was just this online course that I took as well. And that's all of the formal training that I've had. And I think that that class in particular taught me so many good things about art and how to do it and how to make sure your idea is refined and stuff. So
I mean, that is the perfect way to the next topic, because the next question was pretty much, how did you actually get into art? So this is literally where I am right now.
Well, it actually, the real answer to that, it goes a lot further back, because I'm the type that, you know, everyone, they're like, oh, well, I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil, you know. That's like a very, very common thing that you'll hear from artists, and I'm very much the same. Like, I have so many just like drawings and doodles and sketches and stuff from when I was a wee baby. And even like my earliest like true sketchbook, it was from when I was 12 years old. And I drew a lot of like warrior cats fan art and stuff. And I drew a lot of wolves and, you know, just very much the classic there. But I've always just kind of really had a deep love for art. And I think that it was a love that was started by like Disney and DreamWorks and stuff, you know, and seeing this animation. And my love for animation is something that still holds to this day. And I would like to act on it more, but animation is very hard. So
yes, it really is.
You know, it's difficult to really like, I guess, lock in that regard and like teach yourself something, especially like being at kind of, I guess, a higher level, quote unquote, in certain aspects to art, but then feeling like I don't really know too much about animation. It's very intimidating to kind of like go back, you know, and be a beginner again.
I agree very much with that. It's always hard to learn something new.
But you have to be a beginner before you can be not a beginner anymore, so.
But yeah, you named like Disney and Pixar, I think, as inspirations. Is there any other like very big inspiration that comes to mind that you would say like this motivated me, or this was something that defined my style? The art class aside as well.
I don't really know, because I've always been consuming just like a lot of art, like ever since I was little, you know. And so I feel like my style and my motivation really just comes from artists as a whole. Like the existence of the artistic community as a whole is what has been inspiring for me and like moving me forward. Some big names that I can think of, like someone that I was thinking of earlier, like a style that I really love is Loish. I'll type her name in the chat. But her style is so just like beautiful and dreamy and whimsical, and that's something that I always kind of like look at. I'm like, oh man, like I wish I could, do stuff like that. And so that's something I'm kind of working towards, as well as in the VTubing space, since I do make VTuber models as well. Dia Riku has been a very, very massive inspiration for me, and just I've also learned a lot from watching her streams and stuff, and just seeing how she will put together a model and make it come to life. But the reason I started doing VTubing actually was because I learned about VTubers and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I would love to do that. And then I saw the price tags on the models and I was like, holy moly. And so I was like, I bet I could learn how to do that. And so now here I am 5 years later and I've learned how to do that. So
I'm very good at that.
Thank you.
Would you say the VTubing scene in general had like a very big impact on your art style as well? Or is it just something that came naturally?
I think it was something that more came naturally, because if you like, of course, if you look at the VTubing sphere, for a grand majority of VTubers, they're just like anime models, and I don't have any problem with, anime style or anime models or anything, but I've never viewed that as something that like I wanted to do. Like I have always been trying to work towards bringing that kind of more sense of semi-realism into my models, and specifically like noses and stuff. That's a big one for me, is just like, having an actual like side angle of the nose that will
Yes.
that's something that I really like enjoy trying to figure out the process of and stuff. And I think it's a nice little niche that I can sit in.
The nose niche.
Indeed.
Nose specialist. But yeah, generally all of your art always has actual noses.
I do my best.
Yes.
Sea Noodle does not have a nose.
Yeah, but I think that is just chibi.
That's just her character.
Robot also doesn't have a nose.
Yeah, he might under that mask. You don't know.
Oh, maybe. What things would you say were just historically things you were struggling with?
Oh, fundamentals, which I know is something you said you wanted to get into later on.
Yes.
But because I was self-taught for so much of my journey, like I was just learning from, I guess, like watching other artists and stuff, and I would only watch videos on topics that I was like interested in. Really like getting into, like color theory and anatomy and perspective and stuff has always been difficult for me, and is in fact something I still feel that I struggle with a lot, especially like color theory. That's like a big one, and I've been trying to really like break away at that and learn that more recently. And I still, of course, feel that I struggle with anatomy. I feel like anatomy is definitely the hardest thing to master, and so I think that that's why it's like so important to try to really like have that as something that, like, I guess like more of a keystone of something that you're working towards. At least if you're drawing people, of course, that's information that doesn't apply to, people that only like drawing landscapes, or people that only like drawing cars, or, stuff like that. I think maybe even the advice would still apply then, right? Because it's like you still have to study, trees. You have to study how does this wheel fit on the car? How does this, But I definitely, I feel like there's still a lot that I struggle with in art, and that it's going to be like kind of a never-ending journey of learning, which is both very frustrating and like, but it's also it's very like hopeful, because it's like there's always something to learn, and so there's always something to be looking forward to, and always something to be driving towards.
I mean, mechanics and topology and the way, everything has sort of the anatomy thing. I agree with you there as well. And color theory, I think you can see a lot of how you work on that. And how much you improved, like you said, here with the blues in the skin, and you can see the way the light changes the color. Or like here generally, the lightning of effects and other kind of stuff. So it's funny that you say, oh, I need to improve my fundamentals. I struggled with fundamentals. So it is really a never-ending thing, huh?
Certainly is. Well, there's always something that you can do better, There's always something to be improved upon. And that's a scary thought, but it's also, just real. It's just true. So
I have way more questions for historic stuff.
oh, please ask.
But before that,
Mhm.
what is your least favorite exercise that you do?
My least favorite exercise?
Like art exercises.
Because I don't really do art exercises. I do gesture drawing a lot because I love gesture drawing and I love kind of figuring out the anatomy that way. So it's hard to think of something like an exercise that I don't like doing. I actually hate drawing like cubes and stuff. It's so boring. I don't like drawing cubes. I don't like drawing cubes in perspective. I don't know. That was always something that was frustrating for me. It was like, oh, draw a cylinder, but make it in perspective. And I'm like, what if I just explode?
There we go. It is the shape drawing.
I don't do shape drawings anymore. I don't do that because I don't like doing them. So,
That's so funny. And I've got another one for you. What is your most favorite fruit?
My most favorite fruit? It depends on the season. Generally peaches, but pomegranates in November because that's when they're in season. However, a note about pomegranates is that I only eat 2 a year. And yes, it is always 2 because I always have motivation for one. And then I'm like, I will muster up the motivation for another and then never again until next pomegranate season because they're so much work. Yes. But generally, peaches.
Peaches.
Yes.
Okay, do you think you could draw a peach in 30 seconds without looking up a reference?
Probably.
Because that is what I would like to see.
Oh, all right. It's going okay. I think I'm just going until you tell me to stop.
So, you're like at 45, I think.
Oh, shit. All right, I'll stop now then.
Show us the peach.
Oh, it is very scribbly peach.
I'm looking forward to the 30, 40 second peach.
There is my 30, 40 second peach.
Isn't this a beautiful peach?
All right, now while we're talking, I'm going to refine it a little bit.
Remember to hydrate.
Don't worry, I've been hydrating. I've been drinking my water.
So yeah. I guess artists do need some time to draw. You want to tell me 30 seconds is not enough to make a masterpiece?
Probably not.
At a time where you didn't think your art was that good yet, in a sense, did other people's general input make it better or harder, or what would you say?
It's something that I've talked about before at length, but essentially growing up, my mom was always very hypercritical of my art, and she did like try to point out the things that she liked about my art and stuff, but every time I would show her something, it would very much be like, well, you could do this better, and you could you could convey this better, you could blah blah blah, and so I feel like that is something that ended up hindering me a lot in my journey. Was just like I felt like my art was never good enough. And that's still an idea that she like fully believes in to this day. She's like, oh, well, why wouldn't I tell you when I see something that you can improve on, even though I've told her like, no, it was actually not very helpful and in fact very damaging. So, and so that's my biggest thing. And that's also like a big rule that I have in my server is do not give critique unless it is asked for specifically. Just because I never asked for critique and yet. So I think that's just like it's just very damaging as a whole. Have that kind of just like rattling around in my head, even like to this day. It's like I still like will see my art and think that I'm not very good sometimes, which I don't know if that's comforting or if that's fear and anxiety inducing, but I think on the flip side of that, things that have been really, really helpful for me are just when people like are just generally encouraging and just say like, oh, like keep going, you got this, like, and just pointing out things that you see that you like or, and Also, just kind of like finding it within yourself, I think, is another like very important part of the process, because you can't always have, everybody commenting like, oh, well, I think this is great. I think this is wonderful, And so like finding just like the kind of joy of it in and for yourself, I think is probably more important than what anybody else could ever say about your work,
So find joy of your own art for yourself. Appreciate comments you get, and try to
Yes.
not focus on unwanted critique.
Yes.
That on top, what would you think was very helpful that you didn't expect, though, from other people towards your art? Was there anything that comes to mind?
Not in particular, because it's mostly just been things in like little tiny like tips and tricks, specifically for like Live2D and stuff, right? Like watching, like when I found out that that underfill exists in like for Live2D art, my life was changed, And so, but that was less of a specific advice that was given to me, and more just like, just something that I picked up as I was kind of generally, paying attention in the space and trying to make sense of it that way.
But yeah, basically, digital art techniques are very good for you. Then is what I hear.
I actually well, because underfill is like a very specific to Live2D thing, where basically you have to, not you have to, but you copy and paste your layers, just so that the line art and the base color are separate from each other, and then you can layer them in a way that makes it so it looks like your line art is moving. Like you can, hold on, you can probably even see it on my model. If I, hold on.
Now I see.
I'm trying to like show my angles and stuff, but basically it just makes it so that it looks like your line art is moving. Yeah, so I think just finding kind of like general tips and stuff over time, just like looking out for information and stuff.
Kinda a mean question, I feel like.
Oh, okay.
But basically, in everything you do, you always have one moment where you just realize, oh, I'm actually good at that. At what point did you think like, oh wow, I can actually art good?
Probably, I think it was when I started taking commissions, actually.
Okay.
And I've been taking commissions for a year now. And so, but I think it was when I really saw that people actually like really enjoyed my art enough to pay for it, which I know that that's not also a very accessible answer, which is the problem, because not everybody, has been able to be in such a privileged position as me to, be able to get eyes enough on their work that people will commission them, And so,
I mean, it's personal question, so it's all right.
But I've improved my peach. I will send peach version 2.
Show me the improved peach.
That is 10-minute peach instead of 30-second peach.
Yes. We now have the fabled 10-minute peach.
Yippee! I'm glad to hear that I've been helpful for other people. That's something that's motivating for me, is when people in my community tell me that I've helped them. Because I love to help people, and and see how my my advice or my actions or words or whatever can help people. And so that's very motivating to me as an artist, because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. So
I mean, lots of people go to your Discord just to learn art as well. I keep sending people to your Discord to learn art, so
please keep sending them to me. I want them.
Yes.
Give them to me.
People ask me about. People go, oh yeah, I want to learn art, but I don't know where. I bob Discord.
Thank you.
Going with the questions I've written down, that means you are an inspiration for quite a few people, but who are your inspirations to art?
Oh.
Like, you've mentioned 2 of them, especially in the past.
Yeah. I honestly do think it's just like, again, the artistic community as a whole, because I follow, like, I have such a trigger finger for just following artists that I love on, on my socials and stuff. And it's funny, I've even thought, I'm like, do I look like a bot? Because I'm following like I don't even know how many accounts I'm following. Let me check how many accounts I'm following on Blue Sky. But let's see. Yeah, I'm following 1,500 people, and so I'm like, I hope I don't look like a bot, but like, I
No,
just every time
it's
I see
alright.
good art, I have to follow, and like,
Yes.
I, I don't know, I maybe another more specific example would be Briefree. Let me see if I'm remembering
Mhm.
her name properly. This artist, this is actually a kind of a little bit more of an involved story, but basically,
Mhm.
she is a webcomic artist, and she was making the comic Patrick the Vampire for, and this was like very, I think she started making it in 2012, and that was like when I was on Tumblr the most, and so I picked up this comic, I started reading it, and because I was 13 and on Tumblr and had no shame or fear, I literally messaged her. I started messaging her and I was like, oh, like I want to make a web comic, which is the web comic that I'm still planning on and wanting to make. But I'm like, I want to make this web comic, but like it's also about a vampire, and I just, I wouldn't want it to be like too similar, blah blah blah. And she talked with me at length, just about like, her inspirations, and like she was like, oh, well, like it doesn't matter if you're also making a story about a vampire, because I'm sure that, there's going to be enough differences that it won't matter at the end of the day. And vampires, aren't like a very like niche topic or blah, blah, blah. And so, but she talked with me a lot. She told me about her school that she went to, and, and just like kind of the process of making comics in general. And of course, these conversations happened like over 10 years ago now. And so I can't really remember them, but I just remember that she was very, very kind to me, and very like supportive of me. And so, and I'd like to have a chance to tell her how much that meant to me, even though, I still to this day, of course, have not fucking started that comic. But I would like to tell her at some point that like that was very impactful for me, just like having somebody that believed in me very early on, and just like talking with me like that, like an artist that was, already in this space and had a following, and that was very, very, very cool of her. So I really love her. She's great.
That is good to know. And yes, I've also read a bit of that comic after you talked about it.
Yes,
Very good.
she's very good.
Very fun.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any more inspirations, or are these three and
Oh.
basically the entire art community itself? I mean, that's a lot
And
of
again,
inspiration, let's
just
be honest.
yes, but again, just like DreamWorks, Pixar, Disney,
Hmm.
not as of late for Disney and Pixar,
Yes,
unfortunately, but
the old stuff.
yeah, the old stuff, and especially like Prince of Egypt. That movie just has
Hmm.
always blown me away. And like I don't care if you're not religious at all. Go and watch that goddamn movie if you haven't seen it. If you've never seen the Prince of Egypt, you must watch it. It's such an insane experience, and just like that movie in particular, I feel like is something that very much drives me towards wanting to be an animator and stuff, just to be able
Hmm.
to like make a story like that come to life on the screen. That's just
Hmm.
very, very compelling to me. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pick out names just because I do follow so many people in the art space, and and even like my own community and stuff, they're all very inspiring to me, and just like the fact that I inspire them inspires me more, like I was saying, but it's just it's I love when people talk about art in my space, especially when people like will DM me about questions about Live2D and stuff, and just and again, it makes me feel like I'm doing something right, and like I'm moving in a good direction.
It's going a bit back to an earlier topic, but it's sort of a mix, like inspirations and other kind of stuff, but it's more, okay, what do you think is your latest new finding when it comes to art, be it art style or your own art journey, all that kind of stuff? Something that popped up
uh,
recently and you go, oh yeah, brain.
that it's actually the advice that I've given you many a times, but the advice
Hmm.
to delete your art. Delete your art.
Yes.
I stand by it. I think it is actually like the best advice ever.
Hmm.
Just because I have found that your second attempt is always better. Literally
Oh
always,
yeah.
100% of the time it is better. And also it helps you kind of almost detach yourself from your work in a way. And I don't want that to sound like a negative thing, because it isn't. It's very much like a like for me the advice of delete your art, it's
Hmm.
just like stay unattached to your art so that you can always make something better, basically, because I would very often get bogged down in like, oh well, I worked so hard on this, I spent so much time on this, like I don't want
Hmm.
to I don't want to change this because like, you know, I worked so hard, you know, but in kind of a backwards way, it has helped me speed up my art even because I'll just be like, nope, that's not working. Paint it out, start it over, you know, delete the layer, try again. And I truly stand by that advice so much. And again, and I do want to say, because I haven't said it yet, but I've said this a lot in my spaces as well, but any advice that I give is not the end all be all of art advice. And I never want anybody to think that I'm like a holy grail of knowledge or something. It's like I do know some things, and I know some things that work for me, but everybody is different. Everybody has their own processes. Everybody has their own way that they go about things, you know. And so if I ever give a piece of advice like delete your art and you find that it doesn't work for you and in fact like slows down your process, halts your process, makes you, you know, anxious or depressed or, you know, something like it makes you feel more negatively about your art, then don't listen to me. I'm not, you know, I'm not some god of art or, you know, like I do art. I love doing art. I love talking about art, but I don't want anybody to ever feel like my advice is, like, again, like the end all be all, you know, because I don't think that. I think that it's always important to try a million different paths to see which one is the best for you to take.
I mean, that's just basically what you learned on your journey and what works for you.
And everybody should follow suit. It's your journey, so take it by the reins.
Yes. But the delete your art thing, just I can say yes. For me, it works every time.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's a big thing. Is like I've done it to a couple artists now, where I'll have them sit down and call with me. And I'll be like, okay, draw something, anything, doesn't matter what, you know. And then they'll draw it, right? And then I'm like, okay, now do it again. And then they always, every single 100% of the time, will start 1,000,000,000% more confidently because they already have an idea of what they're going into and like doing. So instead of like figuring it out and kind of like testing the waters and stuff, as it were, you just go in and you're like, okay, well, I already know kind of the shape that I want to make. And so just that confidence from already knowing what you're doing, I feel like it always makes your second attempt better. Always, 100% of the time. So
hashtag delete your art.
yes.
Basically, when you start over, you have an idea in your brain and you know what you're gonna do. You have the intention of what you wish to draw. But in paraphrasing, it always comes down to, basically intention of what you are drawing, actually. You're not just trying out something, you're not expecting to squibble around and have the result. You have an intention in your head.
Yeah.
Before I even ask any specific question, just when you have an idea in your head of what you wish to draw, how do you approach that idea?
I guess it depends on what it is that I want to draw. Because, for instance, like if I want to draw my character, right? It's like I already know my character front and back, and since it's my character, any quote unquote mistake I make is actually not a mistake because I'm a shapeshifter, so I can just back out easy peasy. But
yes.
And so it's very easy for me to just kind of like, I don't know, go forward and just plot something down of my character. But for like, for instance, other people's characters, I'll usually want to, you know, get up some reference pictures to make sure that I get details and stuff right. And also for like that background piece that I did, right? It's like just having a photo up on the side to kind of just reference and make sure that kind of the colors all are making sense and look like the photo and stuff, you know. And so, or like if I'm wanting to draw a more complicated or difficult piece, right, I think that reference is very, very powerful. And that's something that I also see a lot of people talking about. They're like, oh, well, don't use reference because that's cheating. And I'm like, it's not. It's not cheating to use reference. And I don't know who started that as an idea, but it's never cheating to use reference. I think there's very little that you can do to quote unquote cheat in art. So, but yeah, I think that starting with a reference is always a very good place to start.
That was actually as well the very first question, like, what's your stance on using references? Perfect.
Yes, use them. My stance on using references is use them, abuse them even. Use those references. It will make you better.
Yeah, you literally see about any professional artist. The first thing they do is either make their own references or use references before they start
Yes.
in the actual piece.
I would also argue that a photo reference is always going to be better than like a pose modeler. And of course, like it can be difficult to find the pose that
Yeah.
you're looking for sometimes. And so, using a pose modeler is sometimes the only thing that you really can do. For instance, yeah, exactly. That picture that you're posting up there, that's a reference. I did that off of a reference picture that I got from a Dorcas doc. So it's a fool's errand to try and conjure up poses in your brain if that bank is not already there, right? Like if you don't already have that that kind of like, I guess, knowledge more like built up, because like I can do neutral poses pretty well because I've been drawing neutral poses forever, right? And so it's like that's something that I have a very healthy mental bank of. But for things like that sitting pose, right? It's like I don't draw people sitting hardly at all / ever, right? And so I found this reference and then I did it off a reference, and I think it looks pretty good for based on what the reference was. And so it's all just about kind of like building up, right? It's just like any other skill. And so if you can build up your like kind of mental library for anatomy and how it works, and then it's a lot easier to build poses out of your brain. But I also like I use reference photos, but just use them. Just use them. It's not cheating. You're not a cheater. You're not worse at art.
Yes.
Like I literally don't know where those ideas came from. Just use them.
Yeah. Now I also have another question regarding references for which maybe a screen share would actually be good, if you have a way to set
Yes.
up that quickly, which is basically approaching references. How do you actually work with references?
I'm wanting to host a class on this in my Discord very soon, actually.
Yes.
I'm trying to talk with people and see like when their schedules and stuff are. I probably need to be a little bit more aggressive about it, but I would like to start hosting classes. And the first one is going to be breaking down a reference. And so how I go about breaking down a reference, I got this picture off of lineofaction.com, the one I was just talking about, right? But it really is just about the big shapes that you see, right? And so with gesture drawing and stuff, you basically just want to see what is the line of action, right? And so it's like you can see that on this character, she has, or not character, but person rather, but she has just this straight line going straight down through her body like that, right? And so I guess that's kind of hard to see, but so usually when you're starting gesture drawing, it's just kind of that same thing, right? So like my tablet pen has been acting up lately, forgive me. But you have just this kind of line here, right? And then just kind of seeing like, okay, then the shoulders kind of go up like that. The hips kind of angle down like this, right? Head kind of sits here. And then it's just kind of building out the body from there, right? And so you're like, okay, well, if the hips are here, then I can see that this leg comes out this way and then down. And then this leg goes behind and then goes down, right? And then the arms as well. It's like, okay, well, I can see that this hand ends kind of where this hip is. And so then just kind of connecting the lines there. And of course, like I've made the shoulders far too broad in this single line, right? But that's something that you can also just kind of refine as you're going and be like, okay, well, that kind of probably goes like that. And just kind of seeing like what is the relation of these spaces and stuff? How do they inform where other things land, right? And so kind of how this is, and even then it's like I've just drawn this line, but that's not really a line that's happening. It's more of a straight line that's happening that kind of just goes down here, right? And then thinking, okay, and then this hand kind of comes straight to the middle, and so then you can see how that will kind of relate to everything else, right? And then you can see that her neck kind of comes down this way, and then her gaze is kind of fixed up this way, right? And so that's probably like the very most basic way to break down a reference, at least for me, is just like really like kind of looking at these shapes and stuff. And this is more of like a gesture, but if you were to do more of like a figure, right, then you can kind of, figure is more about like mass than it is about like the intention and stuff, I guess.
Okay.
Or just like the general pose. And so you can see that her body is making this kind of shape, right? As it kind of goes down. It's just basically like looking at what the photo is telling you, because that's also the advice that I gave, is that the reference photo doesn't lie, right?
Oh yes, that is another
And
big
so,
advice.
yes. And so when you're like looking at these things, like you can see, like I started drawing her thumb crossing this line here, but you can see in the reference, it doesn't actually cross. And so we know that the thumb is going to start coming out here, right? But then the hand is going to come down here. And in fact, it's going to land on top of the belly button, right? And so then it's literally just looking at everything in relation to everything else, right? And how they inform each other for the greater whole of the piece, right? And so then same thing here is like, okay, and this arm kind of comes down like this and then like this. Even just in this piece, I've made up a lot about what I think is going on in the piece. And so just kind of trying to learn to break away from that more and trust what the reference is telling you rather than what your brain is telling you about the piece. Because your brain is a silly hunk of electrical meat, and so it is bound to make some mistakes. But then even in that, right, it's like you can kind of see like where this all relates and stuff. And then because I've done my work in kind of relational stuff, you can see that, of course, this space is not as big as this space, but it has landed my wrist in nearly the proper place to be going right here, right? And so it's like there are still some things that I can see here that are like not necessarily the correct things, right? Just kind of for the general idea, it really is just seeing how things all relate to each other. Right. I think that's the biggest thing for me in reference drawings is just how does it relate to XYZ and blah, 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 you know?
So this is basically what you would use the reference for. So your brain does not lie to you and you get the pose down and everything.
Exactly.
I mean, this is now gesture drawing everyone has seen, but when you work with, for example, very complex shapes or mechanisms or just the face, is there another way you will break those down, or is it just always the same way?
It's all pretty much the same, because even if I like zoom in on this face, right? Let me delete out a chunk of this so I can just do it a true side by side, right? It's just kind of the same exact story of like, okay, she has kind of this oval face going on, right? But then it cuts back into her jaw, and then her ear is like right there. And then you can see how that, like, her hair kind of comes back here. And then there's almost like a straight line happening there based on how her hair is, like, coming in front, right? And then how it comes around. And then and I always put the center line. I think that's a force of habit from classes prior, right? But you don't have to do that, right? And so just looking, and you can see there's this kind of, like, big triangle of light that's happening here, right? And so it's like, and then her eye starts more here, right? Because I think instinctually I would probably try to put her eye more like here. But again, it's just like the kind of relational aspects of like what the piece is actually telling you and how that eyebrow like goes off the side, and then you can see like the eye kind of goes here, and then you can also see that her nose kind of like comes up through here and then around, and then you can see both of her nostrils as well. And so it really is just like, what is the reference? What is the reference telling me about this piece? And even here, I've made her eyes too big. That's a consistent problem that I notice when I'm drawing things is I'll make the eyes far too big. And I think that's just more like a force of habit than anything, right?
Yeah, that goes back to your art style then.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like when people talk about like, oh, well, how do you develop an art style? I'm like, just draw, and then that's your art style. Like
exactly.
Like I feel like it's hard to, I guess, like really define it because it's just however you draw is your art style, you know.
So the art style just happens naturally from the way you intentionally do things and the way you solve problems, basically.
Yes. But yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like a problem that I have in spaces like this is I probably moved too quickly just because like I do have that foundation of knowledge and stuff, right? And so I apologize if I've been kind of glossing over things or going too fast, but...
I mean, this is not a class per se. This is just sharing knowledge.
Well, that is true, but, you know, I suppose.
But it's really interesting because... how it plays together, because earlier you said, oh, you love gesture drawing, but you hate drawing cubes. And
Yes.
when people approach faces, they have, for example, the Loomis method or other methods that just rely on drawing cubes and spheres and circles. And you just go and
I don't
draw
like those
like the
methods so
gesture
much.
drawing. You just
Yes.
draw basically, oh yeah, ear, face, circle, bam.
Yes.
So even that translates to how you approach things, which again shows
Yeah.
there's no perfect way to do it.
There's never a perfect way to do it. And that is the beauty of art.
Hmm.
Because however you do it is the right way.
Even if you hate drawing cubes.
Even if you hate drawing cubes.
I mean, it plays together with references pretty much, but helping tools and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to references like other tools, be it stabilization or using rulers or drawing grids.
Yeah. I think that if you are using digital art, you should be using the tools that come with digital art. That's my take on it, because I think a lot of people like do also get stuck in that kind of idea, right, where they're like, oh well, if I use this brush that does the grass for me, which I know I mentioned earlier, but it's like if I use this brush that does the grass for me, then it's cheating. And it's like, no, you're using digital software, right? Like its job is to kind of, do things like this, right? That's very much how I view digital art and stuff. And it, like, for me, when I'm lining my work and stuff, I use stabilization. Like, I absolutely use stabilization, because if I turn this thing off and try to do the same line, oh boy, you can see how squiggly that guy is. I have shaky hands. I always have, And so for me, like, being able to use stabilization, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? That's literally an option that you have available to you in doing digital art. So why wouldn't you, And so for sketching, I don't use stabilization, just because I have, I'm a future carpal tunnel haver, and so I draw with tiny little lines like that. It's a terrible habit, which, by the way, never don't gain that habit. It's bad. But if you have the tools, if you have the means to be able to do that, then do. Why not? And like in rulers and stuff as well. It's like for Live2D models, I use like the symmetry filter and stuff as well. It's like, why wouldn't I? And I think it is probably good advice if you're just like drawing people and stuff, right? Try not to use a symmetry filter. It's something that I do use a lot, is like a symmetry filter and stuff, because I want to. And so, but I think it is interesting seeing, like, on Reddit and stuff, I'll be scrolling and I'll see people saying like, oh, well, how do I improve this face? I think it looks weird or something, And everybody in the comments is like, stop using the symmetry filter. Like, you're hindering yourself, because faces do naturally have differences and stuff, right? And so embracing that brings more humanity and life to your art, and it makes it look more natural, right? And so I've been trying to like keep that advice in mind as I'm drawing faces that are like facing head on, just kind of like trusting that the differences will make the piece look all the better in the end. And I think it does. But I think in terms of like using specific brushes, it's like I have this brush here, which it's just like a stars brush, right? Very, very general and stuff. And it's like, it's because I don't want to go in there into my piece and spend thousands and thousands of hours just drawing each and every tiny little star, when I have this brush that could just do it for me instantly, right? And it's even, you can even think about it in a sense of traditional art, because what do people do when they're drawing a starry background, or they're painting a starry background and stuff? You just, you splatter the paint. You splatter the paint on your canvas, and that's how you have stars. Like, people aren't, like, I feel like people always like to find a shortcut, right? And like a way to do something easier and like less time consuming, right? And I don't think that that's bad. I don't think that doing, like, letting a tool work for you, I don't think that that's a bad thing, or I don't think it's cheating, Use your tools. Use the things that you have available to you, especially if you're doing digital art. Like, if you're doing traditional, of course, like, and then the same thing applies. Like, you can smudge things with your finger to get more of like a gradient effect, right? And like, that's a tool that you have. Like, you don't have to hatch every single line in a perfect, fading off pattern in order to get the effect, when you could just smudge it, right? It's like, there are things and little shortcuts and things that you can do and steps that you can take to make your life easier as an artist, And even like liquefy and stuff. And I was even just thinking that right now. I was like, oh, liquefy, because I want to bring the top of this head up a little bit, because I was just seeing how her hair actually kind of goes more in the shape. And it's like, use liquefy. Why not? put it more in the shape that you want to. It was even funny because for the last 2 attacks that I did for this art fight, I did them traditionally, and not being able to liquefy killed me a little bit. Like not being able to just like lasso something and resize it and stuff, because that is a thing. Like I struggle with proportions and stuff. Like I always draw heads too small, hands too big, like eyes too big, you know. It's like these are things that I consistently will just do in my art, but because I'm using digital art, I can just very easily go in there and resize it, right? Like even this character, like her, or I say character, but this girl, her eyes, I've drawn them far bigger than they should be, and so I can just go in here and make them a little smaller, you know? And it's like that is a tool that I have available to me as I'm using, you know, a digital art software, so why wouldn't I? I think I've made them too small now, but you know.
But yeah, even if you...
Sorry?
Sorry, yes. I was just going to say, even
fine.
if you look at time lapses of very, very big artists, they will also just use lasso tool and liquefy and stuff.
It's not cheating. Just use the tools. Just use the tools.
You're still making the art.
Yes.
We talked about that a little bit, so I will just quickly brush up on it because we got a question for that. But basically, especially when it comes to intention of drawing, the different art styles. Like we talked a lot about it basically. Okay, you don't have a specific one, it just happens. But Faye earlier asked, have you ever tried the negative space drawing method where you draw the space around the reference instead of the actual model on the reference?
I have not really done that. I've done it to a very, very minuscule degree. It was actually a lesson that my grandpa taught me, right? Where he said, okay, what is that? I was like, okay, it's just a line. And he's like, okay, now what is that? I was like, oh, it's a triangle. Because you in your brain, you can see the triangle even before that even happens, right? And so with like negative space and stuff, there's a lot that you can imply just based on surrounding features, right? Like this, it's like, you know that there's a circle in there. I don't have to draw the circle in there for you to know that there's a circle in there, you know? But I think in terms of like drawing with negative space, I don't think that that's something that I've really, really done.
If you were to do, oh yeah, draw this in different styles or draw your OC in different styles, do you think you would have a hard time with that? For example, if you had to just try to draw your character now in the style of, let's say, Disney or Pixar or, I don't know. You know what I mean?
I think, that's actually an exercise that I did used to do. Back when I was like solely a traditional artist, I drew one of my characters in multiple different styles. And so that would be something that I have to, you know, pull up a reference for, like Disney. I'll just look up Disney and then we'll look at images and then we'll see what we get, you know. But I think it can be an interesting exercise to try to draw your character or any character in a different style than you normally would, right? Because it's just training your eye more and more to see specific things and specific, you know, scenarios and such, you know. The Disney style is very much based off of kind of a cat's features, just because like the way that it's proportioned and stuff it's supposed to be like very cutesy, right? And cats are cute, and so you do very like cutesy, right? I guess it's harder with my character as well because I've gone far more creature recently.
How important do you actually think is the quality of the result if you have an intention? For example, like you said, oh yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna fare. Or do you think it's more important to just try and make it better afterwards?
Well, I think that depends. That depends on, again, like that it depends on the intention, right? Because if the intention is to make something good, right? But you're like, oh, but I would like to do it in Disney style, right? But then it ends up not really being in a Disney style, or like it just looks weird because you tried to do Disney and failed or whatever. Then it's like, you know, I think maybe at that point it's like, well, I'll try to make it better, you know. But if the only intention is to draw like Disney, just to like do a study and stuff, and then it goes bad, then, you know, I would just be like, you know, okay, that was a fun experiment, and then move on. But if the intention was to make something good, then it's like a slightly different story, you know. If I just
so basically be clear of the goal in your intention as well.
Yeah.
And if you're actually trying to have a good result or not. Other thing then, when it comes to intention, do you have anything other that you would like to share?
I don't know. I think that if the intention is to make art, then it's good.
Yes.
I don't really think too much about it just because like I have been doing art for so long, and so the intention behind my art is that like I want to do it, right? And I
Yes.
think that that's all that you need. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Basically, you would want to make art. You should want to make art.
Exactly. That's part of the AI discussion actually, that I've been seeing is just like all of these AI bros, all that they care about is a finished product. They don't care about the process that it took to get there. They don't care about, like they just want to consume more media. They don't care
Yes.
how garbage it is or how slop it is or by the means by which it came about. They just want more things to consume. And it's just like it's completely and utterly just in opposition to the entire point of art. And the point of art is doing art. Like,
Yes.
so
That's actually very
it's
good
just,
advice. The intention of art should be also to make art and the art process.
yes.
That's pretty much all questions I have for the fundamental of intention.
I think they actually used to be a lot better about the proportions back in the day, but then
Oh yeah, true.
Tangled came out, and so
Uh-huh.
also I love Tangled, by the way. Do not get me wrong. I love Tangled, but
Speaking about that, as a funny question in between, drawing animals, because there's a lot of people who are very good at drawing humans, which
yes.
again is not really a problem because you get better at what you do. But basically, when you get someone who is, oh yeah, I can draw animals, they can just draw all the animals. So, do you think it's important to draw things you are not good at, or what's your opinion on that, just general?
I think that also just depends on your goals as an artist. Because
Hmm.
I know there is this guy that he only draws women. Like that's
Hmm.
it. He just draws like pretty girls, and that's like the only
Hmm.
like he's this very like popular famous artist. He just draws girls. Nothing
Hmm.
else, never anything else. And people are like, "Well, why don't you like, you're so good at art. Why don't you draw this or this or this or why don't you do this or why don't?" And he's just like, "Cuz I like drawing girls." And that's like the end of the discussion. And so I think
Sure.
I think that is truly like the heart of
Hmm.
it, right? Is like
Yes.
what is the art that you want to make? What is your goal in making art, right? Like do you like for
Hmm.
me, right? Like I want to be like I want to make semi-realistic art, right?
Hmm.
And I want to make a web comic, and like there's like these things that I want to do, and there's these goals that I'm driving towards. And so because I want to make a web comic, I know that I'm going to have to work on making backgrounds and drawing buildings and stuff, which is something that I am wholly terrified by because I have very little to no experience drawing buildings and backgrounds, and just stuff like that is not stuff that I interface with hardly ever, right? And so I
Hmm.
know that that's something that I will have to pursue if I do want to make this webcomic. However, I also know that I don't really care to draw, cars and stuff. Like, I just
Hmm.
really don't. For me, it's like I can either change my webcomic setting so that he's not really ever interfacing with cars, or I can suck it up. And
Delete the
so,
cars.
delete the cars. But it's like, and so if somebody only ever wants to draw animals,
Hmm.
like that's fine. Like, I get it just is like, but what are your goals in art, right? Because it's like if you only draw animals, but then you're like, oh, but I want to draw people. Well, okay, then you have to draw people. Like that's just kind
Then you
of
gotta
I
learn it.
guess the log. Yeah, exactly. It's like the logical next step to it, right? It's like I don't think that there is any like real shoulds in art. The only real should in art is you should be drawing what you want to draw. That's it.
Okay. You should just draw what you want to draw. I think all three of these are very good in their own regard when it comes to colors.
Thank you.
I mean, here you just have the way the light shifts and everything. Here you just have lots of colors that blend together very nicely, but also create a highlight. Like, if you look at it small, it just looks good still, no matter how small you look at it. And here you just have a lot of green.
Yes.
How do you approach colors in general?
I try to be braver about them
Hmm.
now. And I also, in a way, I also kind of like scale it back. Like it's kind of backwards because I look at some of my older art from like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was only really using like saturated colors, but like they didn't really look good together, and just like, and like I love saturated colors. Look at my model. Like I love
Yes.
saturated colors. And so it's something that I definitely still tend towards in my art. Like in terms of like these three pieces specifically, like especially like the background photo, right? Like the landscape photo, that was based off of a photograph, right? And so it's like I basically had colors already that I could kind of, pick from and like suss out on my own. I don't remember if I actually used like the eyedropper tool on the photo. I might have. Basically, like that, all of that information was already there for me. And then for C Noodle's piece, the monochrome one, the all green one, my goal with that one was to do a monochrome piece. Like I wanted to do a fully green. I was like, I don't really want any other colors to be in here. And so my approach for that was literally just to basically paint it out in green and then have kind of like a flat layers color that I could kind of overlay onto it and be like, oh, okay, this is where like the color variation would be, right? But that was just basically like a use of a blending mode in order to achieve kind of a result I wanted to get to. And even then, like I still added some more saturated green into her eyes and the angler's eyes because I was like, well, I know that I want these to stand out. And so I want them to be like slightly more of like a greeny green than kind of like the blue green of the rest of the piece, And so just kind of like adding a little bit of stuff like that. But it's like even if you were to like color pick her cheeks or her tongue or something, like they're still green, even though they look red in relation to, the rest of the picture. And then for Lex's photo, that one was more, I don't know. It's like, it's hard to say because I knew that I wanted, like, I've been working a lot with like skin specifically recently and like trying to make it like work and make sense for me, And so, and like adding like the color zones of the face. So like you'll have, your skin will appear more yellowy in places where you have more like fat deposits or where the bone is closer to the skin. And so, like the forehead, right, will have kind of a yellowish tone as well as like down on the cheeks a little bit. There'll be a little bit of yellowish. And then as well as on the heights of the cheeks, it'll be red. And then for the blue, that'll usually be on the jaw and as well as in the inner corners of the eye, right? And so it's like adding kind of these extra little colors and stuff that just make it look more like skin. And again, like the blue on the inner corners, that was definitely something I picked up very much from the Chapel Roan art that I did was, doing those kind of like alternate little colors and stuff. But like, I don't know. I just kept it like very dark and gloomy because I knew that she, this character's a vampire. And so her whole thing is kind of more like dark and gloomy and like, like for that character, right? It's like I had a reference photo of her. And so of course, like I picked the colors that were on the reference photo because I wanted it to, match the reference. But then it's just like I added a multiply layer on the top after it was all done. Because that's another trick that you can do in when you're doing digital art is you just add like either a multiply layer on the top or you can just copy paste your entire piece and then gradient map it and then like set it to a low opacity so that it kind of brings all of the colors together in a way. And again, these are all things that I've been learning very, very recently. Like I still think that I struggle very much in color and it's something that I still would like to get better at,
Colors, for you, it is currently less about picking the exact right color and more, again, about the intention of what do you want to display.
Yeah,
and
like even this Chapel Roan piece. Yeah, like if you look at the actual photo versus this painting that I did, right? It's like you can see that her hair in the photo is far less red than I have made it in this. And again, like I always tend towards very saturated colors. So I guess like for me, right, it's like she's a redhead, and so I'll make her hair like super vibrant and bright, And even though I was trying to like copy the piece pretty exactly, it's like I still ended up with this very, very like red and vibrant hair, whereas in the photo it's more muted, it's more, dull and whatever.
About the shading, when it comes to the way the colors interact with each other. I know, for me it's a bit like cheating, because I know that you specifically told me for the hair, for example, or the way you choose colors for highlights, to just make it more saturated. Just generally shading. What are you shading? Like, how do you go about shading stuff? You know, how do you choose the colors and all that kind of things? Yes.
So basically every time I pick a shadow, so whatever my base color is, I will make it more saturated, and then I will make it darker, and then I will move the hue, so like the physical, like actual color of it on the color wheel slightly in one direction. Doesn't matter which direction, just as long as when you do your highlights, which you do the same thing, you make it less saturated, you make it brighter, and then you just move the color the opposite way that you moved it on the color wheel for the shadows, basically. Yeah, for that, it's just like, I think my biggest advice for shadows is just be brave. Like, that's the advice that I always give everybody all the time. Because I've had it more than a couple times where people they'll come into my critiques me channel and they'll be like, or critique me channel, and they'll be like, oh, well, I did these shadows and I you know, like, I don't know how to make them more noticeable. And I'm like, just make them darker. Make them darker. That's how you make them more noticeable, you know? And so, for me, my advice is always be braver. And also, my favorite part of that advice is that this same person then later they posted a piece like this morning, and they're like, oh, like, I hope you're so proud of my shadows. And I was like, I literally am. Like, they look so good. You were so brave. And like, they look good. Like, they put down these like really heavy dark shadows and they look really good. And so, just for me and like shadows and stuff, like, I just try to pick a darker color than I probably normally would, you know, just try to push the boundaries a little bit, because I think the more variation that you have in your hues, the better. And that's something that I also talk about is, if you take a fully white layer and you put it on top of your entire piece, and then you set the blending mode to either color or hue,
you want to show that?
It will put, oh yes, I can do that. I can do it on this peach that I drew.
Yes.
Yes. So essentially, if you put just fully white, use the bucket tool, put that bitch 100% in white, right? And then your blending modes will be up here. And then the hue for me on Clip Studio Paint is right here. And then you change it to hue. It'll change your entire piece to black and white, right? And it's like, then you can see here that we have like these very bright spots, and then we have these darker spots, right? And even here, it's like, I could make it darker, right? And so it's like, if I grab like the darkest color that I have here, which is like this, right? And then I make it even darker, it's like, you can push these values so much to like really, really emphasize the shadows and stuff. And you can see even just like me adding that, it's like, this looks so much more, like, it has so much more depth than it did before. And then also taking like the brightest colors and then just making it brighter. You know, it's like, and then just adding like those little like bits of highlights and stuff. And then even like the brightest white, just kind of like adding that in like some key spots, right? It's like, that really can just, like, this looks relatively flat now in comparison. But if you just add, like, just darken your shadows, lighten your highlights, and you will have a much more, basically the story that you're telling will be much more consistent and coherent.
So shading is a lot about being brave when you look for a variation and you want to make things look very saturated. You vary the hue as well.
But it's like, if I wanted to add those shadows back, it's like I take kind of whatever dark color it was I was seeing there, right? And then you just move it more saturated, and then move it darker, and then move the hue a little bit. So just like that, it's just kind of a little 3-step action. And then you can just like come in here and then add more shadows, add more depth, you know? And it's like, and even there, like, peaches have a lot of variance in color. And so I've been trying to kind of just like jitter around the color wheel a little bit and kind of just like add whatever the hell, you know? And then even like this like more darker purple down here, I could use that more as a rim light. And these like bright yellows, you know. And then even like the textures and like patterning in the peach itself. Like, if you look at pictures of peaches, which I did look up briefly so I could get, you know, a better read on this peach that I was doing, because reference pictures are goated, so always use them. But it's like, I noticed that there's kind of these little like almost like dotted patterns and stuff. And so it's like, you can just go in there and just add that. You have the power to. I think that's another thing, is like, you have permission. it is in your wheel. Like you can do that. Like you don't have to not just because some tutorial that you saw on Tumblr 10 years ago tells you not to, you know. I think there's always like, again, there's always like a way to improve, right? There's always a way to make it better. There's always blah, blah, blah. And like, not to, you know, echo the words of my mom, which I was not speaking very fondly about earlier, but it's just like, you know, I feel like if you can find a more internal drive for it, for improvement, rather than like externally having somebody just, you know, kind of constantly dogging on you, you know, then I think that that is far more effective and better than somebody else telling you to do it.
The internal drive to do things will always be the best.
Yes. And now this is a 20-minute peach.
It has transformed from 30 seconds to 20 minutes.
Yes.
That brings me right to the next question, because it all plays together in the color department, but while shading, you didn't just vary color and add color. You also applied light with highlights and shadow. But you basically chose beforehand where the light comes from. How do you usually approach light sources, especially multiple?
Light is very hard. That's another, that's the biggest thing in color that is difficult for me. Always, always, always. I feel like I tend to do a very just like general light for most, if not all of my pieces, right? It's on a separate layer, but yes. But it's like, okay, so if the light is then coming from the bottom, it's like, okay, then I know that I want my highlights to be more like here, right? Because also it's like a sphere. And so you can assume, and again, shapes, which I don't really like, but you do have to learn them for some things, because it's like, okay, if it's a sphere, the light will kind of be coming from here. And then the shadows will kind of be here, right? So just kind of generally like trying to think, where is that coming from? And then like what would be like blocking it reasonably, right? But it's like you can assume probably the light would probably try to want to like stretch up into these like divots a little bit, right? Because the peach is textured, right? It's not just like, it's not just a sphere. And so then it's just, again, like kind of building the color. And another thing I like to do for these kind of midtones here is just make that like more saturated. Then that tends to make, that makes everything look a little bit more vibrant, is if your midtones are more saturated. And then same thing, you can do it here as well with these midtones, if you just make that more saturated. And then that's a good way to get like some very easy color variance in your piece that is more dynamic, right? You know, and then it's like, okay, well, what if there is a blue candle that's lit behind this, right? And it's like, well, okay, then it'd probably be lit up blue from behind, you know? And so I guess, I don't know, it's just trying to think about what the object is in a 3D space. What is it doing? How does it interact in this 3D space? You know, like where would these colors be hitting and stuff, right? And it's like, even this blue light, if it's coming from behind, then it's like, you can assume that it probably wants to like hit this little edge as well, right? And so it's just literally just, I'm just grabbing just random colors, because I'm like, I kind of want a yellow. Goes yellow, grab yellow, put down yellow. Like, it doesn't, the thing is, delete your art. That's the thing. It comes back to delete your art, because it's like, if I decide I don't like this yellow, I can just be like, okay, well, let me try something a little bit more orange then, and then just paint over it, you know? And again, I'm like not looking at a reference of a peach right now, so it's hard to even know, but then that also circles back around to references and stuff. Because it's like, well, if to find out what a peach looks like, go and look at a reference, you know?
So it also shows just how insane the idea is of, oh yeah, I might not be very practiced, but let me just draw this entire scene out of my head.
It's quite the process.
Basically, lights and shading and all that stuff plays back to use references. Think really hard about where the light is. Just understand and practice. But especially when it comes to like translucency or reflections and more complicated light effects, how consciously do you think about that?
It's something that I've been thinking about in skin a little bit more lately. Again, it's like, it's not the easiest thing. But basically, when you have skin, you pick like a skin tone. That's probably good enough. And so this will be little Timmy Tommy, I guess. We'll give him some eyeballs really quick. And this is what I'm saying, like put the shapes first and then add the lines on top. This is kind of what I've been doing in my art lately. All right, there you go. That's kind of a face shape. All right, so if I wanted to shape this face, right, I would do the same thing I was saying before, where you grab that color and then you just move it diagonally downwards and then shift the hue a little bit, right? So it's like, then all right, then I know there's probably a shadow under the lip. There's probably a shadow under the nose. But there is an effect with skin, which skin is slightly translucent, like you were saying, right?
Yes. Subsurface scattering, I think, is the correct term.
Yes, indeed, you are correct. I forgot what it was, so thank you for reminding me. But subsurface scattering, essentially, if you take, like I was saying, this kind of mid-tone almost, but then you just like brighten it significantly, kind of like almost to here, then you get a way more believable transitional shade specifically for skin, right? Where you kind of have this like very, very red tone happening, because skin just does that. Like it do that. And so that's something that I've picked up from observation as well as from, you know, like tutorials and people being like, oh, like add this to your paintings to make it blah, 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 you know? So just kind of like over time growing that like mental bank, as it were, of like, oh, this is how skin interacts with, you know, with its lighting sources and stuff, you know. But now what I've been doing instead is I take that and I just alpha lock it, which basically, for those of you that don't know, it just means locking all of the pixels so that their transparency stays the same. And then you grab that super saturated tone and then you just like brush that shit in there. And then you can like reblend it out. And then now you see that there's kind of like a pinkish like transition that happens here. Whereas that's what it looked like before. And so that's the specific thing that I have been using it for. But yes.
Basically here is you think about it and try to simplify what is happening and not try to exactly reproduce it.
Yeah.
Because
I think if you try to exactly reproduce something, you just get bogged down.
Yes.
Like, and again, that is what I was doing for the chaperone piece. But and then I still, of course, made a lot of creative choices, rather like regardless if I wanted to or not. I still did. Just don't get bogged down in it, you know.
Just vibe it. Just simplify
Just vibes.
and get the message across. And I think that's also where art style happens personally. In the way you simplify it.
Yes, big agree.
You know, everyone has a million favorite colors, but if you had to pick on one right now.
Turquoise. I love it so much that I made my character's blood and eyes turquoise, so...
That's very cool. Rose has a half-serious question. How draw so good so fast?
The answer is practice. I think I do think it ties back into delete your art. Because I'm just not attached to it, really. You know, I'm just like, just chuck it on the page, you know? Because like, I think something that I see a lot of the time, TBH, all artists, I don't know why I said TBH instead of to be honest, but you know, it's fine. I feel like when I see people draw, like they're very much like, they'll kind of go like, you know, they're like, well, okay, you know, and they'll kind of like just like very like slowly like construct together a piece, you know? Whereas kind of my approach to like doing a sketch or something is just like, okay, well, I know that a head is a circle, right? I know that the eyes are kind of in the middle of that circle. I know that the nose is kind of here, the lips are kind of here, right? And so it's like, it's very easy to just kind of like constructing it. And of course, and again, that the answer there is also practice, right? But it's also just like general knowledge / having done it a million times, which it's like, I kind of like know where the lines are that like I want to make, you know? And so it's like, I know that like when I make a piece, like I'm going to want, you know, the iris is going to be somewhere. I want like, you know, nostrils for the nose, lips for the lips.
I think what you're displaying here is also just make it first and work when your brain can see it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it good later.
Making it first is such an important philosophy. Just make it. Just make it.
Because you have already shifted the way the eyes look towards the camera while working on it from the basic sketch.
And it's like, I didn't know I wanted her to have a headband until just there in my sketch lines that I saw a headband. And I was like, hell yeah, she gets a headband now.
Yes, your brain autocompleted.
Yep.
Because the question ties perfectly into it. Before we go into shapes, we all know everyone's favorite shape, right? I'm gonna hide your art program for a second. Everyone's favorite shape is a hand, right? I know for a fact that everyone drawing anything anatomy loves drawing a billion hands, right?
That is true. Yes. Hands, actually, that's another thing that it's funny because it does tie into shapes, because that's something that that is also a more recent development. Is just like, that's just some cylinders, you know? That's just some cylinders on a square. Like, I don't know. It's like kind of hard to describe, but like hands, of course, are very hard. But
do you want to draw it? I can show it again if you want.
I can, yeah, I can draw a hand.
If you want.
Me grabbing burger. I'm reaching towards the screen and grabbing a burger, right?
Yes.
So it's like, I know, okay, I know fundamentally, right? A hand, the base of the hand is kind of shaped like this. It's like, it has a little bit of a taper down to the wrist, right? And I know that there's a triangle here for the thumb. And then the rest of the fingers just kind of come up like this, right? And so that's kind of how my knowledge of a hand has, I guess, simplified, right? And so when I draw this, that is like the top of this shape that I was saying. It's like this plane here, you know? Because it's like, well, okay, I know that the hands are coming towards me, right? I know that these shapes are going to kind of go down like this. And then when I'm grabby, the thumbs are on top. And so I know that this triangle shape is going to kind of be here, right? And then it's like, all right. So then grabby, and then I make a grabby hand so I can look at my grabby hand and think, okay, what is this doing? And then you can kind of just like, okay, there's 4 fingers, right? So it's like, I know that this one's going to want to kind of like come down. And this does not have to be perfect first try either, right?
I mean, that ties into a lot of topics at once as well.
Yes. And then even here, it's like, nah, I don't like that first attempt. Get rid of it, try again. So
yes, delete your art.
Because the fingers kind of like come, let me see. I'll probably want the pinky to go down. And then this one to kind of like come more forward. That's 2 down. Because then I want the rest of the fingers to kind of like, right? And it's like, okay, well, and I make them line up properly, right? And so even my starting shape, I've not used it, which that's something I always do, is I'll draw my little starting shape, ignore it.
Literally what you said earlier. You just delete your art and the second attempt is going to be faster and better.
Yep. Yep. Give it the okay hand. Hit him with the okay hand.
Basically just try to use simple shapes as much as possible and stack them together. Yes. Is what I'm getting.
Simple shape, very good. I think that that's also kind of a trap though, because a lot of people, like when you look at the Loomis method, right? A lot of people are like, oh, well, it's broken down into simple shapes. And I'm like, no, I think it actually makes it more complicated. Like, yeah. Because the thing is, it's like the Loomis method. It's like, okay, draw a sphere, but then cut off half the sphere, but then like section the sphere, but then add this line, and then like and it's just like, stop it.
Same.
Loomis method, boo. I mean, if it works for you, that's fine. But...
Exactly. Just find something that works for you in the way you approach it. If you had to draw, like just say you have a disorganized stack of moving boxes. Which is basically, just a bunch of cubes, which we know you don't like drawing cubes.
No.
How would you approach that, just generally?
I think first, well, because the first thought I had, I was like, well, I don't want them to all be just flat, because then that's boring, right? Like you don't just want, flat box plus flat box, but whatever.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, well, I'd probably want to define a floor, right? It's like, okay, and if the floor runs along here, and then there's like a corner here, right? Then I can be like, okay, well, there's like a box here maybe. And so just kind of drawing the top of that and then being like, okay, and then there's like the little wings that come off of it, right? And then like, you can kind of have like another shape, maybe something fluffy and furry, and then maybe like a giraffe is like sticking out of here, right? Deciding what and where, and then it's like, okay, well maybe the unpacked boxes are towards the back, right? And so like those will be the ones that are like still all fine, and like they're taped up and shut, and
Basically, when you start with even the simplest of shapes, you will first of all begin by remembering that it all exists in a space. That is the first thing you did. You made a room for it to exist in. You didn't just randomly make a cube. You made a space where it did exist.
Yes.
Just like you started colors by assuming lightning.
Yeah.
So it's always all tied together somewhere.
Yes. It always just builds on top of each other,
Yes. But also you can't really approach it isolated, because then it's just gonna be your brain doesn't know what to do, I assume.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because like if you just wanted me to draw a box, right? It's like,
I mean, yeah,
a long
but
box.
then you just draw a box, and that box looks worse than the box you drew earlier in terms of perspective and everything, you know? But you drew it in a space, and suddenly it made more sense.
Yes. It all relates,
And the other thing is basically don't sweat too much realism and too much perspective if your intention is to get a message across, or just to draw. So I think the next question is going to be something you like more, which is basically, okay, how do you make soft surfaces when compared to hard surfaces? Like
I like
squishy
soft
stuff,
surfaces
peaches. Yes.
far more than I like hard surfaces. And I think this is where kind of that, like my wrist movements and stuff come into play, right? Because it's like, you're never going to see this shape on a box,
Yes.
But you could see a person making this shape. Like I can even already like see a person kind of happening in this space, right? I don't know, it's so easy. It's so easy to just like be organic and stuff, and just like, all right, well, I know kind of like that a body can make this shape,
Me when floor time.
Yes. That's like, it's just so much more freedom to kind of like, do whatever you want when you're working with organic shapes. Because it doesn't have to be perfect, And of course, like when you think about the human body and stuff, right? It's like, of course, there are bones, right? And so I think that having at least a decent understanding of the bones is good. It's like, I know the skull is here. I know that the orbitals are far bigger than this, right? I know that the spine goes all the way down, right? I don't know how many vertebrae we have, but I know we have them. So, I know that goes down. And then I know that at least 3. Yes. But again, it's like, I'm not the most knowledgeable about the skeleton. And again, you can see the problem here. I've drawn the head too small again, like I was saying. And so, the great thing about digital art is I can just come in here and say, never mind, there we go, fixed. So, and then I know that there's like all the metacarpals and stuff, and then like, the hand bones, which we don't have to be too precise about that. And so there is a hard structure in the body, right? And that will inform where the soft shapes go. There is so much variation in how that soft shape happens, And so, like on this same frame, you could have someone who's like so skinny that literally it's like, sticking to all the bones and stuff, just like teeny tiny, legs don't really go out too much, But then it's like on that same frame, you can also have somebody who does go out a lot, right? And like there's a lot of mass hanging off this body, And so the skeleton only informs so much about an organic shape, right? And I think that is important.
So basically especially for every organic piece, every soft surface, because I do 3D modeling, so my brain is full of 3D modeling terms. But basically every soft surface, or like everything that can drape over anything, just is defined by the hard surface underneath. Is that what you basically have in brain?
Yeah. But in addition to that, right, it's also just how how much it can or cannot affect the overall shape, you know? Because, like, yes, it is informed by the shape, because it's like, you will, at the end of the day, for most people, you will have arm, torso, hips, leg, head, right? And that's like the very most basic, like, pretty much every person is going to have this, you know, of course, barring extenuating circumstances, but, you know, so it's like there's a very basic structure that can always be followed. But other than that, you know, and like cloth and stuff. Cloth's a big one that I still struggle with, honestly. Like clothes and stuff are very difficult for me as well, even though they are like more organic shapes and stuff. But
they're
yeah, that's something
they're
that
also boxes.
I'll figure out. Yeah.
They're just moving boxes.
Yeah. I think you've put it perfectly.
And also very interesting, because when you drew the cloth, you already had a movement and everything. So again, you started with giving it perspective. You started with giving it a room to exist. Because, you know, the piece of cloth, the piece of drapery, could have also just been a flat plane if it was not moving.
Just
there you go.
There's a piece of cloth.
As long as it's not moving, it doesn't have any folds.
Yeah.
So.
But it's just less fun that way, you know?
Exactly. But it boils down to intention again, and just to creating a space where it exists.
Yes.
I know when you go like, oh yeah, I want to learn art. The first thing you will find is like, oh yeah, draw cubes, draw gesture drawings, make shapes.
I will tell you to draw gesture drawings. So.
Yes. It's basically the skill tree. Do you want to draw cubes or do you want to do gestures?
Yeah, basically. Those are the only two options.
But I think for you it is just try to remember that shapes exist basically as a package of other things and don't see them in their very isolated state. Oh,
yes.
Which, very funny question. And probably the worst thing to ever ask you is, okay, would you enjoy drawing mecha?
Actually, I kind of do, like in a weird way. Just like it was literally from that class that I was talking about earlier, but how basically in one of the pieces, I won't bore you with actually like sending everything over again.
Yes.
But essentially, for this creature, right, I had a tail. And the thing about mecha is that it has been made so much easier for me in this, right? So I had this tail, and it just went like this, right? Yes. And my teacher was like, this is not a good shape to look at. And I was like, okay, well, how do you make it a better shape to look at? And he was like, you add the visual candy. And so he went through, and for everywhere that I had made like a little segment, he just basically went like this.
Oh.
You know? And so you can see already how that is way more fun to look at and way more interesting, and it informs so much more about the actual shape and like what this thing actually is, rather than just like a flat shape, right? And it's like you can even like section it off like kind of in a small way like this.
So it's basically, when it comes to shape, just make the shape and then make it better later, just like colors and everything.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Just idea first. Idea first is the best advice. As long as you got that, then you're chilling. Yeah, exactly.
Before we move on to the next topic, I have another fun question.
Oh, yes?
I don't know if, fun is debatable, but would you rather draw 50 hands, 25 ears, or 3 frames of a walking horse?
Probably 15 years.
25.
Oh, 25 years. I'm me when I mishear things. But I'd probably rather draw 25 years. Because ears are very easy. TBH. Unpopular opinion, perhaps, but...
Do elaborate?
Ears I do not think are too hard. Well, I can draw you an ear right now. Ear... Literally, all ear is just this shape, this shape, this shape, this shape, this shape. There you go, there's an ear.
crazy.
Well, I guess there's one more line in there, but it's like, I don't know. Ears are very, for me, they've been, I've drawn a lot of them and I've looked at them a lot just because I'm like, well, how the hell do you draw an ear, you know? And so it's like, you can obviously have variations and stuff, and like, you can kind of have like, you know, bigger lobes, smaller lobes, but it's like, basically you have this structure that kind of like comes like in and then around like this, you know, and then, you'll have this guy that kind of goes in front and then makes this little like pocket space almost that then comes up here. And then you'll always have this kind of like little Y shape, which this is the big thing that people will be like, oh, when you're drawing an ear, they have this little Y shape, you know. But this Y shape moves down into this.
Yes.
And so these will kind of like join up like that almost. Like, I don't know. So I don't find ears particularly difficult to draw.
But that pretty much...
Just because I've done it a lot.
Yeah.
I've looked at
Exactly.
it a lot.
So basically, when it comes to any complex shape, if you can... You don't have to simplify the shape from the very basic shape if you already know how the shape works, is pretty much here the effect. Because you know what the ear is going to look like. So you can skip the steps.
Yeah, basically.
You can just
I mean,
start
and if you
with
want
the
to draw
finished
like a very
shape.
basic ear, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of like that shape, right? It's like a C
Yes.
that's like a little bit fucked up.
But you're not starting it
That's
as a
it.
cube and then subdividing the cube and cutting the cube. You're just
No.
making the ear.
Exactly.
Because you know what the ear looks like. Of the fundamentals that you will find if you just, you know, sort of scour the internet or something. Or ask people. They will always go, oh yeah, composition.
Oh, composition is so hard. That's another
Yes.
thing that I'm like, I don't fucking know, dude. I have no idea. Like I know some like very, very basic things, right? Like, oh, like if you have a piece, right? Basically, the advice for composition is if it reads when it's this big, like if you have your
Yes.
piece, like a sketch of it, like here, right? If it reads here, then it will look good when it's up close,
Yes.
you know?
I've
And so
heard that
that's
as
like
well.
the whole, yeah, it's like the whole concept of thumbnailing and stuff where, basically you just want to have like a very tiny, and even I should be zoomed out for this, right? But it's like if I
Yes.
want to have a scene of like I don't know, like a person running away from something, right? It's like maybe like their head's off in the distance here, and then like, but like I want their foot like really big and like foreshortened back here, you know, and then like their other foot is like really tiny, like up in the front because they're running. And then it's like, what are they running to? You know, and it's like, okay, well, they're moving this direction. But it's like, then it's like, okay, well, then you can kind of like have the road that like, they're the path that goes all the way to the house, and they're like running on the path to the house. And then like maybe you like this corner feels empty, so it's like, okay, maybe the sun will be in this. So I guess that's the only advice that I really have for composition, is just because again I haven't really fucking done it very much, and I still feel that I'm very bad at it. But just if you can make it work, like if you can tell what's happening from here, it's composed well.
But what you did there as well is you were specific about placement of things to give clarity in the picture, even though they might not be the most realistic. Because, you know, they might be running straight forward to the house, but then they will just cover the entire house.
Yes.
So you basically defined a viewpoint from where you see the scene first.
It's all about telling a story, innit?
Yes. But basically for the composition, you started with placing a camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you place the important elements, the big elements. And you also reduce the number of them. So you already do a lot of things.
Yes.
But going forward, this ties back a bit to earlier. When you made the boxes, the box scene. I don't know if you still have that one. Basically, what you did here as well is, and what I heard a lot as well, is basically define big things and define small things in terms of composition, which you also do already. So I think to a certain degree, by approaching all of the other things, you will automatically do some compositioning as well.
Yeah. Well, and again, that just comes kind of from like the mental bank that you grow and grow and grow. Like I'm always looking at art. Like I'm always just like, well, I guess less so recently, but a lot of the time I'll just like scroll on Blue Sky and stuff, and I'll just like look at people's art, and I'll just be like, oh wow, the way they did that is so cool, you know. But like I really like take time to like intentionally look at things that like I really like and would like to emulate in my own art, and then I just kind of log it away, and then that's all just like in my little mental library of information for me to, you know, I guess reach into whenever I do draw, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So
Okay. So basically, when it comes to composition, also just look around and, yeah, remember what you like.
yeah.
Because you're seeing the full finished piece when you look at art. So the composition is there. Do you just like consciously, when you look at finished art pieces, just think, oh, what did they do with the composition? Or do you just go, oh yeah, I like that giraffe?
So sometimes it's both actually. Like it depends, because like if I'm in more of like oh man, like I do think that I'm struggling with my composition, right? And then I'll be scrolling down Blue Sky and I'll be like, okay, well I like how this is composed, I like how this is composed, blah blah blah, you know. But it's not like I don't have like 100 million things in my brain all the time, like when I'm scrolling down Blue Sky about like, oh, I'd like to improve on this, I'd like to do this. But it's more just like I have kind of these like passive desires for my art. And so then when I see things that will remind me of that, I'll be like, oh, I like the way that they did that for this thing. Like I should try that for this thing that I want to improve on, or, you know. Yeah, I feel like looking at art for me is definitely more of an active activity than a passive one. So.
And I have one more question for composition. In terms of object count or that kind of stuff, like how much do you display on a scene? Do you just subconsciously
I don't draw scenes?
Yes. I mean, it ties to everything, like character design, for example, as well.
I guess so. I don't know. It's just more of like a work in progress, and again, like kind of like building up on something. And so like even that little like composition thing that I was doing, I was like, okay, well this corner feels empty, so what would I put there? And so it's kind of same for like character design and stuff. It's just like, okay, well this area feels empty, this area feels ignored, this area feels like it doesn't make sense with the rest of the design, you know. And so just kind of like looking at the overall image in comparison with everything else, you know.
Tell the story once again.
Yeah.
Because if it's not supposed to be empty, then it is not going to be empty.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you want to draw like the classical clean room example, then you're probably not going to fill all that space. You're going to fill it in a different way, is what I'm getting.
Yes, so that's something that I'll probably have much better answers for you once I've actually been doing my webcomic. But
yeah, that's actually going to be interesting then.
Yeah, we'll see how it develops then.
But it shows as well, like the art journey basically never stops. You're always learning.
Always, always. Never quit.
That would be already it for the big teaching segment, unless you have more knowledge to share, or just general stuff that goes in your brain that you try to keep in mind and all that things.
The
fundamentals, or anything you really want to share?
I don't know. I think honestly my only thing of advice that I have left is if you have the inspiration to draw, just sit down and do it. Because it's so easy to lose it. And if you're like, I kind of want to draw, just listen to that. Just listen to it. It doesn't even matter if it's like for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's okay. Just sit down and follow that desire. And because then you're practicing listening to that in yourself, you know. And it's good to practice that kind of like, I guess like intention about like, well, I want to do this thing. Because I think what I hear a lot of people say is they're like, oh, I'd love to learn how to do art, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, okay, then do it. You know, sit down for, like, whenever you think, like, I would like to do art, just sit down and do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, draw a stick figure on a page, you know? And so, like, as long as you're kind of following that intention, right, that kind of, that wish to create, and then you do it, then good. Then you win, you succeeded, you know? And so I think that's really important, because I do see a lot of people that are just like, oh, like I wish I could be good at art, but like I want to be good at art. I want to draw, but like I'm so bad. It's just like then draw. The only way that you're gonna not be bad anymore is if you keep drawing. So
Yeah.
And I say that lightly because I truly believe that no art made by human hands is bad, so.
And to be fair, we also said, like, just drawing cubes doesn't really work for you. So maybe if you go, oh yeah, I want to learn art, and you Google it and you draw a billion cubes, and you still have not improved, maybe then drawing cubes is just not the way for you.
It's always okay to find a new path, try a new thing.
Exactly.
Other than just like same advice, if you want to, then pick it up, just do it. I'll help you, you know? Like, and this goes for all art. Like if you want help with something and it's art related or Live2D related, please DM me. You are never bothering me. You are never too much. You are never like a waste of my time, or you're never like a leech on me, or like I swear on my life, it's like literally my life's greatest joy to talk about art, to interact with artists, to like do everything concerning art. So if you like, I don't know. That's all. I think that's all that I have to say in regards to like Live2D and rigging. Other than I love doing it, and if you want to try learning it, I will help you learn. So
yes.
Yeah.
Join the Discord.
That's all. Join the Discord. Get in there.
Very specific art forms when it comes, for example, to games like pixel art, or when it comes to Nightmare Before Christmas, I think was the movie's name. Like, is there any art style that you think, oh yeah, I would have a lot of fun doing that, but you don't really do it because it's just not yours?
I don't know. Like I do think stop motion is interesting because you pointed out Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes.
But I don't know. Like art forms that I think are cool. I honestly like painting. Like I would love to do more watercolor. Like I've done a little bit of watercolor before.
Okay.
But I think it would be I would like to get back to it. Like and doing just traditional art in general is something that I've been kind of having like a craving for in my soul recently. So
the watercolors and traditional oil painting.
I would love to try oils and stuff. I would love to try oils. I've never have.
Would be very cool to see as well.
Ugh, I will send pictures if I ever
Soon.
do. Yes.
Is there any very big bad advice that is stuck in your head that people will give a lot of times, but it's actually not very good?
To echo what I was saying before, the worst advice is advice that doesn't work for you. So like drop it so fast. Like if you get a piece of advice and you try it and it makes things worse or harder or makes you feel like you want to spontaneously combust, just drop it. Like not every single piece of advice is applicable to every single person or every single situation in art. Art shouldn't be like a frustrating thing to do. I've spent so much time being frustrated in art, but I've also spent so much time just having fun in art and just doing what I've loved doing in art. I think the worst advice is always just the advice that doesn't work for you. And advice that may be bad for one person may be amazing for another, you know?
Yes.
And so it's all just person to person, you know?
Then I have two more questions left, Poyo.
Poyo.
One being, there's the biggest topic of every creative scene. You can probably already tell which one it is, but art block, art burnout.
Me when I explode.
Same. How do you go by that?
I don't know. I evaporate. I was actually talking about it a little bit in my server this morning, but so basically I got a job last September and I was working there for 6 months. I was trying to save up so I could come out to England and visit my boyfriend, which I am doing now.
Yes.
And I was also taking commissions at the time. However, I was brand new to taking commissions, and so I took on way too many. And then my work scheduled me for more than double the amount of hours they had told me that they were going to give me. And then I also got sick. And so I got really, really, really behind on doing all of my commissions. And I was just so like anxious about all of it. And I was just like, man, like, I feel like I'm such a failure. And just like, and so like 3 of those commissions, I ended up delivering late and I still feel bad about it. But like midway through, I was just so like frazzled by all of it. I was like, I just can't work on this art. Like I just can't. And so I took like a break for like 3 weeks, and I made this entire model, this one you're looking at on the screen right now, because I was just like, I need to do some art for myself before I literally implode. And so I made this whole model in like 3 weeks, and then I was able to like get back to my commissions and finish them out, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And so I think step one of burnout to try to fix it is do something for yourself. However, if the only art that you've been doing is art for yourself and then you're burned out, just like take a break. Like play some video games. Just like still, like what I do is basically I'll still look at art. I'll still, think about art. I'll still interact with art a lot, but I just won't make it myself when I am experiencing like really intense burnout. And like even like at the end of Art Fight, right? Like which is probably ending right about now, but I was definitely like feeling the burnout like really hard again, like, and I had another commission I was working on, which I had to get out by August, which I have. It is on time this time, but I just take really, really big breaks. Like I'll play video games. I'll just like completely just like not even open my tablet. Like literally me opening my tablet today for this stream is probably the first time I've opened it in a week. Because I just like the burnout from Art Fight was so intense. I was just like, oh. And so, but even then it's like, then I found that I was able, like I still could do art like traditionally. And so I went and I did 2 more attacks on with pencil and paper instead of digitally, right? And so it's like, maybe like if you're experiencing burnout, maybe try doing a different medium. Maybe just take a break, and then tying back also into what I was saying before, if you do get the urge, if you do get like the wish, you're like, oh, I want to do art, right? Go and follow that. Follow it if you can. Because sometimes that's your brain saying, maybe I'm okay now. And then of course, like if you try it and you're just like not really motivated, you're not really feeling it, then it's fine. Just put it down, come back later. I don't bog yourself down in the fact that you're burned out, right? Like let your body take its time that it needs to kind of chill out and reset. Because I think pushing it is just like pushing it obviously is the only way to, make it about 70 times worse and last 70 times longer. So
the creative thing, you gotta take breaks.
Yeah.
Which honestly, that ties into the other thing, which is basically, hey, you have given so much good advice already.
Thank you.
Is there any good advice left in your brain that you want to give on the way as well?
Make art. That's my best advice. Just make art. Do it.
Yes.
Do it. And I want to see it if you do it. So come and join my Discord and show me your art so I can slurp it up. Thank you. Yes, come and join Discord. We're going to start a weekly art challenge on Sunday. Starting on Sunday, it'll be the first weekly art challenge ever.
Nice.
So we'll do it.
Also go follow the Twitch. Is there any other self-promotion you want to do? Because this is the perfect time.
You can find me as Beaultea on everything. So if you search Beaultea, you'll probably find me. And if I'm not there, it's because I don't want to be probably, or I don't know about it. I don't know, but you'll find me as Beaultea.
Thank you so much for all the teachings and time, Beaultea.
Thank you so much. Dude, it's been great. It's been fun. My voice only hurts a little bit.
Oh, no. But that was some amazing advice in there.
Thank you.
And I had a lot of fun. Can't believe you chose 25 ears, let's be honest. What kind of man are you?
I don't know, I don't mind drawing ears. I think they're fine.
Crazy. Remember to follow Riot, or I will pout. Bye bye.